How many times have you blamed yourself for not being able to lose weight after 40? Once? 10 times? Every time you pass a mirror? We grow up hearing that losing weight is simple. Eat less, move more. So when that stops working, the obvious conclusion is that you stopped trying. But that logic has a huge flaw, because after 40, your body literally changes the rules of the game without telling you. And continuing to blame yourself is the biggest obstacle to getting results. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what happens inside your body at a molecular level when your metabolism starts to slow down. Not vaguely, precisely. Because when you understand the mechanism, you stop blaming yourself and start acting intelligently. Let's start with the current state, the chaos that's happening right now inside you as I speak. Muscle tissue is the human body's biggest metabolic engine. Not the thyroid, not the liver, muscle. Every kilogram of muscle you carry burns energy at rest, even while you sleep, even while you watch this video. It's what physiologists call metabolically active tissue. And after 35, 40 years of age, this tissue begins to decrease. The process has a name, sarcopenia, and it is silent, progressive, and devastating for energy metabolism. The average loss is about 1% of muscle mass per year after 40. It seems small, but in 10 years, that represents a significant reduction in your basal metabolic rate. That is, the amount of calories your body burns just to stay alive. The practical result? The same plate of food that didn't make you gain weight before now does. The same level of activity that maintained your weight now no longer does. Your body changed the rules and didn't tell you. But sarcopenia is only part of the story. Because at the same time that muscle decreases, another process begins to set in: peripheral insulin resistance. And this is where things get interesting and scary.
Insulin is the hormone that opens cells to receive glucose. When you eat, the pancreas releases insulin. Glucose enters the cells, is used as energy, or stored as glycogen. A clean, efficient system. That's a young body functioning well. After 40, especially with the reduction of muscle mass and the increase in visceral fat, that deep abdominal fat that surrounds the organs, cells begin to respond less to insulin. They become, literally, deaf to the hormonal signal. The pancreas detects this and responds the only way it knows how, by producing more insulin. And what happens when insulin is chronically elevated in the blood? The body goes into storage mode. Lipolysis, which is the process of breaking down fat to use as energy, is inhibited. The fat doesn't leave. Not necessarily because you're eating too much, but because your body's hormonal environment is blocking fat mobilization at a molecular level. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism documented exactly this relationship. The increase in insulin resistance in middle-aged adults is directly associated with a reduction in fat oxidation as an energy substrate, even under caloric deficit conditions. In other words, you can be eating less and still burn less fat. Not by magic, by biochemistry. Now comes the part I consider most important to understand. The trigger behind almost all of this. And of course, if you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and be sure to subscribe. There's a cellular process called mitochondrial dysfunction. Mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cells. It's where fat and glucose are effectively converted into ATP, which is the body's energy currency. With aging, mitochondrial density in muscles decreases. The remaining mitochondria become less efficient, and the result is a body that has literally lost the ability to effectively convert nutrients into energy. This explains the constant fatigue many people feel after 40. It's not psychological. It's that the cellular powerhouses are operating below capacity. You eat, but the energy doesn't arrive with the same intensity. The body compensates by prioritizing storage instead of oxidation, and fat accumulates. At the same time, the production of anabolic hormones drops. Testosterone in men, estrogen and progesterone in women, growth hormone in both, all in decline. These hormones aren't just for libido or aesthetics. They are metabolic signaling agents. They tell the body to preserve muscle, mobilize fat, regulate inflammation. When they drop, the balance shifts. The body begins to favor muscle catabolism and adipose anabolism. That is, it loses muscle and gains fat simultaneously. The chronological transformation begins even before you realize it. In the first few years after 35, the adjustments are subtle. The body compensates. But there's an inflection point.
usually between 42 and 48 years old, where the compensation systems can no longer mask what's happening. Abdominal fat appears, sleep worsens, muscle recovery takes longer, post-lunch energy disappears. This isn't a process of weeks, it's a transformation that happens in layers over years. First, insulin sensitivity gradually drops. Then, body composition begins to change. Less muscle, more intramuscular and visceral fat. Low-grade chronic inflammation, called inflammaging in scientific literature, begins to interfere with hormonal signaling. And the cycle closes. More inflammation further blocks insulin sensitivity, which favors more fat accumulation, which generates more inflammation. What do most people do at this point? They drastically cut calories. They go on restrictive diets. They try to repeat what worked at 28, and they don't understand why it no longer works. It doesn't work because the problem isn't caloric in the first place. The problem is metabolic signaling, and a restrictive diet without strategy can worsen insulin resistance, accelerate muscle loss, and deepen mitochondrial dysfunction. The measurable result of all this appears on three fronts that science can precisely measure: visceral fat, insulin markers, and energy capacity. Visceral fat, unlike subcutaneous fat, the kind under the skin, is negatively metabolically active. It secretes inflammatory cytokines, interferes with liver function, worsens insulin resistance, and elevates cardiovascular risk. It's not just aesthetic, it's functional. It's a dysfunctional organ installed within the abdomen. When fasting insulin levels rise, even if still within conventional laboratory parameters, the body's ability to use fat as fuel is already compromised. Many doctors consider the test normal.
But physiologically, the body is already in metabolic defense mode, and energy capacity, measured by mitochondrial efficiency and VO2 max, measurably declines. This isn't a feeling, it's scientific data. The body is using less oxygen per unit of effort, which means it's burning less fat per unit of time. Here's my direct opinion on all of this, and I know it will sound different from what you're used to hearing. The biggest mistake people make after 40 is continuing to treat their metabolism as if it were still 25 years old. Continuing to count calories as if that were the only factor. Continuing to ignore muscle. Continuing to underestimate sleep, insulin, inflammation. The metabolic transformation after 40 is not a sentence. It's a new biological context that demands a new strategy. It's no longer about willpower. It's no longer about blind restriction, but a real understanding of what's happening inside the body and interventions that speak the language of this new body. The biochemistry has changed. The response needs to change too. And it all starts with understanding that the problem was never you. It was what happened inside you. And now that you know, nothing is the same.